The following podcast contains strong language. Hello and welcome back to the Ciné Rambles podcast. You're listening to Nick
and Andrew,
and we're here with your weekly fix of film-related reviews and ramblings.
Lots of ramblings.
Lots of ramblings. Spoiled for choice today. So before we get on with our main segments, I did want to give a quick shout out because we've been discussing some sort of Black Lives Matter related stuff recently. Like last week we recommended I'm Not Your Negro. And on a related subject, I've recently discovered Netflix has a BLM collection on their platform as a specific genre. I'll be putting a link to it in the description, but it has a lot of sort of films and TV shows, you know, tackle these kind of civil rights movements. Things like LA 92, 13th. There's a documentary on Malcolm X in there. I think Moonlight's in there as well, but there's a lot of good films in there. So if anyone wanted to check out some more stuff, that exists.
We might look at some of them on Quest for Truth as well.
Yeah, LA 92 in particular I really want to have a look at, and 13th.
Yeah,
actually.
I'm quite keen to look at that. Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. Right. I found out recently, when we did the Scott Pilgrim versus the World Fundamental a while back, I found out recently that they were like halfway through production of the film when the last book came out, which is why the ending is so drastically different. And on the DVD, like on the special features on the DVD for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, you can see an alternative ending, which is Edgar Wright's initial ending that he wrote before the book came out. And then when the book came out, he rewrote his ending to be more in line with the book's actual ending.
But still improving on the book's ending. Because there's no girlfriend machine.
Yeah, there's no girlfriend, but also like he obviously wanted to stick to like the things that he'd set up in the film from the other books, you know, like so there wasn't any fucking random bullshit in there that just came out of nowhere. Like his alternative ending is still would have made perfect sense, you know. Basically in his initial ending, Scott ended up with knives instead of Ramona, and then he changed that so that Scott went with Ramona instead of knives, which is the same in the book.
Right.
Which sort of makes more sense that Scott would end up with knives because, I mean, Ramona Flowers is a bit of a fucking nutter, but, you know, whatever.
Wasn't that sort of the point of the film or the series? He sort of, in this pursuit of Ramona and all the difficulties of that, he's sort of ignoring Knives, who's like a better fit for him.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, it'd be like, oh, actually.
Yeah. Well, that's because, yeah, exactly. Like, so that was the Edgar Wright's initial ending because he saw it like that, and he sort of, you know, like, oh, that makes sense. And then, then the book came out and he changed it. But there you go.
So do you think Edgar Wright's ending is better then?
Yeah. I've said, well, both his alternative ending and the ending he actually went for are both better than the book's actual ending. So, you know,
can't lose.
Anything. No, exactly. Right. Let's move on, shall we, Nicholas?
Yeah. Okay. So you've watched Hamilton this week, haven't you?
I did. I've watched Hamilton. So it's on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And it is a recording of a Broadway show from 2016.
Yeah, of the hit Lin-Manuel Miranda penned show, which for all these years hasn't had any kind of official recording, but now we have. Even though it was recorded in 2016, but they only released it now, and even that was like a year early or something.
Yeah,
it's not quite sure what they've been recording on for.
I think he was Lin-Manuel Miranda because he owns all the rights to it. You know, he owns absolutely everything to do with it. He was in talks with Disney for ages to get a film made. And I think, you know, during lockdown, they nailed this down and released this. Yeah. And I think there's talks about them making an actual film of it instead of just the play recording.
Yeah, well, because they are making In the Heights as a film, which is his previous work. I don't know which studio that's with. Presumably it must be Disney. I'll give it a quick look. But it would make sense to maybe try and do Hamilton. But I mean, that would probably be quite a large budget production, I feel.
Yeah.
Which I suppose Disney probably doesn't mind.
Yeah, Disney's got the cash, haven't they?
Yeah. Plus, to be fair, Hamilton has definitely got the fan base that it would be like a worthwhile investment.
Yeah, it absolutely would be. Like, it's got the fans, like, no problem. It's got the star power, but also almost everyone in the musical is a movie actor already.
Yeah.
So, or at least a TV actor. They definitely have screen experience.
Yeah. So the thing that's on Disney Plus is it's a recording of the stage show.
Yeah. So it's very good, right? Hamilton is good. Like, no, there's no doubt about it. It's very, very well written. The acting is amazing. The songs are very good. It's good, and it's from a very interesting part of history, obviously. And being British, I had absolutely fucking no idea who any of the people were other than George Washington.
See, but I learned who all these people are through Hamilton. You just got to keep listening.
Yeah, exactly. I now know who they are because of Hamilton, which is I suppose a good thing. So the first thing was I didn't like it as much as I thought I would.
No, which might just be hype.
It definitely was.
I've been telling you to listen to it in some form for the past 3-4 years.
Yeah. So everyone's told me to listen to it. All my friends that have seen it have been like, "Oh my god, it's amazing! You'll love it. Go and see it." Obviously, I can't go and see it. And getting hold of tickets for it was, impossible for ages, wasn't it?
Mm. It was at least it was better here than it was certainly in America, but it was still not particularly easy. No.
But so when I watched it, and then, again, this might be something to do with how they record it, which we'll get onto in a minute, and it's just been overhyped massively. And everyone else, including you, seems to be, absolutely frothing at the mouth for the fucking songs and everything. And I'm like, the songs are okay, but they're not that good, They're not like, I haven't pissed myself in pure orgasmic bliss just by listening to these songs. I think they're pretty good, but not amazing.
But then this is getting onto the sort of central nugget of this, because you haven't listened to the official Broadway recording. Which you've just seen the film, and the film is recorded live on stage. But so the problem with all of this is that the way sound is mixed for stage, for a theatre, for that room is a lot different to how it's mixed for film, and I think a lot of that impact is then lost.
Yeah.
Unless, I haven't actually seen the Hamilton tape yet because I haven't got around to it, and I haven't got a source yet, but I assume it's not overdubbed with the official recording. It's the recording of the stage, as it were.
Yeah, I think it's the live recording. Yeah.
And I think there's a problem with sort of tapings of sort of live events is that even if you attempt to sort of mix the sound properly, it just won't beat a studio recording. It's like if you ever listen to a live album of any band, it's never going
to be as good as the studio one.
Yeah, or even being there in person, because the way it's mixed for that organic environment as opposed to a clean audio track.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more had I seen it live. Because also I think, again, I would have enjoyed it a lot more if I was American. But also because, Americans are taught revolution history, since they're in, fucking reception, whatever the equivalent is. So there was loads of jokes, like obviously revolution-based jokes that just flew straight over my head, and they've got the audience laughing at these jokes. I'm just like, what?
Like what?
I don't know. I can't remember them.
Well, that's not helpful.
Yeah, but then there's just these fucking jokes like, "Oh, he did this thing, ha ha ha," and the audience fucking laugh, and I'm like, who? What? But obviously, that's not their fault. That's my fault for not knowing the history. But I think it's a very and this isn't a slight against it because it makes sense, but it's a very, very American orientated viewer experience, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, I've had no problem with and I had no knowledge of sort of American history stuff before, and I sort of got into it fine.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any prerequisites of having to.
I think there is. Because there is definitely having a knowledge base of that era of the people would have helped,
I don't think it's that necessary. I mean, like, because for one thing, even though obviously it's about the Revolutionary War, it's about Hamilton and Burr and their relationship, and sort of, it's more biographical than historical as such, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it matters if you don't know where the places they're talking. Like, I don't know where Chesapeake Bay is. Who knows where that is? I don't know where Yorktown is. I don't know the battles.
Yeah, but not that as much as, the people specifically and knowing what those people did, because obviously a lot of the characters are caricatures of their real people. Like Thomas Jefferson obviously wasn't like that. The same with all of these people. Like Lafayette probably wasn't like that. All of these people weren't actually like that, and I think having a knowledge of what they actually were like would have made that, enhance that experience more. But that's by the by. Let's get on to the actual fucking point we're trying to make here.
Okay, I mean, I still disagree with your point, but okay, we'll go to the main point.
So they do a lot of. We were talking about this. We reckon they did 2 recordings, one with an audience and one without, because they've got a lot of shots in there that just wouldn't be possible with an audience there. So they do these close-ups, and they do there's obviously a cameraman on the stage following them round and walking with them.
Yeah.
That they couldn't have that with an audience there. And they obviously spliced them together very, very well to the point where you can barely tell. However, so the whole point of theatre experience is that the whole stage is important, isn't it? Because you only have this one area to move around and to set it, and that's what separates theatre from film, is that you can't edit a theatre performance. You can't cut to camera B.
There's only one shot in theatre, and it's a locked off wide shot.
Yeah, exactly.
And also it's not just the way a thing is blocked or directed, but also the set design as well, and the lighting. And in the same way in the film, every micro element is fine tuned for the methods of filmmaking. In the same way, every micro element of theatre is fine tuned for that live setting. Which the problem with taping is it then changes that medium without changing the micro elements enough to really match it.
And I think you lose things because they've got this amazing set and these amazing dancers, and they've got all this amazing choreography, and you don't get to fucking see them half the time because it's just on a close-up of Hamilton, and you're like,
yeah,
and
especially when a lot of that kind of show is, obviously there are main characters that do stuff, but there's a lot of ensemble background stuff. There's a lot of synchronized dancing, which doesn't work when you cut in on close up. You need to see it all in one go to get the full sort of.
But also, it's so flowing, and it's so. The point of it's so rhythmic, isn't it? And it's so they are performing as one, not as individuals. To then cut to an individual, sort of ruins that effect. And I think they sort of lose some of the spectacle and some of the magic of it being a theatrical performance that they would be there in a theatre. Which is part of why, Cats, the film, flopped as so intensely as it did. Because of what made Cats, the musical, good is the spectacle, is the costumes, the people, the dancing, and seeing that live. And I think this Hamilton thing has a similar flaw, that it loses that magic because you're not seeing it the way it was intended to be seen.
That is a brave comparison of Hamilton to Cats. We're gonna get correspondence this week, that's for sure.
Well, it stands. Fight me.
But I mean, Cats isn't a taping the same way though. So do you think when Hamilton gets adapted to a proper film, how do you think that will go? Do you think it will work as a film?
I think it will go. I think it will. I haven't seen it, but how have you seen Les Mis in theatre?
No, I haven't. I have seen the film, but not. I've only seen brief clips of the theatre show.
Because I imagine it will be a similar thing. They've got to have all the songs in it. They've got to have these things that, in the theatre they can't obviously have all of the explosions from the cannons and the war and, all the corpses, and they can't have the scale that a film can have. and they can't have the, spoilers, when he gets fucking shot on stage, it just sort of, he gets shot and he freezes, and some ensemble people go up and grab him and then move him. It's like, on film, they'll just have him on the floor bleeding out,
Yeah, there's a lot more of sort of, obviously theatre's a lot less realism in it. There's a lot more stylization and sort of like physical theatre and stuff going on.
Yeah.
Which would have, and I think that would change certainly the sort of the tone and the atmosphere of it at points. Because you're right, like there's a sort of something quite mystical about the end of it there. But if you did that in a film, he would just sort of, he'd just die and fall over, and it wouldn't have the same impact.
Yeah, exactly. I think they would lose a lot of impact because, again, like, before they have the countdown, like the fucking finale is that that
Oh,
countdown.
Attend Your Commandments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they have the bit like right before when Burr pulls the trigger. It's like, oh, there's a freeze frame and it's just him and he's singing. All the music stops and it's like, oh, this is really powerful,
Yeah.
And like, that would be so hard to pull off in film. I don't know. I think it's possible to do it because obviously there have been film adaptations of stage musicals that have done incredibly well.
Yeah.
I just think they need to focus on the characters and not try to have the scale.
Yeah. See, the thing that I was thinking about was like, because, a lot of the sort of the music in it is sort of essentially the characters not quite narrating what happens as such, but like sort of telling the story orally as opposed to like, there's a lot of sort of telling.
It's tell, don't show. Yeah,
which works in theatre because, again, it's a very minimalist stage and they have to explain like, we're at war and we're doing all this and this is what's going on. But in film, so without like changing the songs and the lyrics, like would they just have like a close-up of Hamilton as he walks through these battlefields explaining this battle that we can't see? Like I feel like I think they can do a film version. But I think it's going to be very interesting integrating the songs as they are, which again have been made for this very specific medium and are like, take full advantage of its strengths and weaknesses. To make into a film and have it work, you'd have to change so much of that, I feel.
I think Lin-Manuel Miranda. Lin-Manuel Miranda. I don't think that's beyond his capability.
No, not at all. I think
he's obviously incredibly talented. I think if they just gave him full creative control, I think he could probably do it. And I tell you what they should not do is give it to Tom Hooper.
Oh, fuck. I hope Tom Hooper's career has been ruined in the nicest possible way. But like, because I mean, so King's Speech was fine, sure, whatever. But Les Miserables was
really enjoying that film.
Yeah, but Les Miserables is inherently not a well-directed film. Like, it just isn't on so many levels. And if anyone had any doubts, Cats has surely sealed that. I can't see, after those two, anyone could possibly being like, who should we get to direct this film version of this really popular stage musical? You know what? Tom Hooper, he's had a great track record. Let's get him back. What could go wrong? You should genuinely listen to the proper album.
Okay. I did quite like some of the music was really good.
But I think
it wasn't, making me froth at the mouth like everyone else seems.
No, but as I was saying, I think you need to listen to it like properly mixed in a studio to get the full effect of it first.
I would like to see the actual play.
It is great.
Musical. Do you want them to make a proper film or no?
I mean, there's no reason not to because even if the film's terrible, the album and the musical still exist.
Yeah.
But I think, I'd like to see how they do it. And I think there's in the same way Les Mis had these like, these great set pieces that you couldn't do on stage expanded upon.
I'll tell you what, we didn't mention earlier that I would like to say, like,
okay.
The King George III, he was an absolute standout part for me. Like, he's so fucking funny.
He is great.
Also, like Lin-Manuel Miranda. I just can't say his fucking name. Lin-Manuel
Miranda. It's not difficult.
Yes, it is. Oh right, yeah. He's always saying like he was so worried about offending British people by making King George like a fucking knobhead. It's like, Well, he was a fucking knobhead, so...
Also, like, all of British humour is about taking the piss out of ourselves. Like, we love it. It gets such an amazing reaction in London.
Also, he was alive, like, fucking 400 years ago. Like, why would... Or 300 years ago. Like, why would we give a shit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the difference between, like... Because American patriotism is, like, this sort of, like, almost personal connection to history, which you don't actually have any personal connection to. Like, I mean, just the way they get so defensive over the flag, for one thing. Well, we just don't have that. We just don't really give a shit.
If you slag off someone, you know, from 300 years ago, it's like, what's that gonna do? Like,
yeah,
it doesn't. I don't care. Also, he was known here as the Mad King.
Exactly. We didn't like him either.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, you know, whatever.
Do you have a favourite song from Hamilton? Did any sort of stick out to you?
What stuck out to me? I liked What Did I Miss?
That's decent.
I liked the King's song where he's like, you know, I'm gonna kill all your families or whatever.
You'll be back. That is one of the top ones. Yeah.
And I liked the shot one.
My Shot.
Yeah, My Shot. Well, it's your favourite.
So I'd say, I think the two that I keep coming back to the most, like Yorktown.
I don't remember that one.
So that, you know.
Oh right, yeah.
That one. But because that's basically like the I mean, there's non-stop, but that's like the climax of Act 1 to an extent.
I think the first half was a lot better than the second half.
Yeah, I think there is certainly a school of thought for that. I mean, so yeah, obviously the first one is like, you know, more about, you know, the battles and stuff, and then the second one is more political and personal.
Yeah, I did like the how their political debates were fucking
rap battles.
Rap battles, yeah, I liked that.
Oh, the other song I really love, I probably one of the standout moments from Act 2 is The Room Where It Happens.
Oh yes, I really like that one actually.
That's basically a villain song, and I think it's so well done. I love it.
I also liked Washington on Your Side.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I feel like the first half was like they have, I say revolutionary as more like, you know, that it was so unique because it introduced, you know, having rap as in a musical, especially a musical set 300 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas the second half felt more traditionally musical. You know, it still has the rap and the fast talking bits, but it's still a lot like the songs in it, like What Did I Miss, like Washington on Your Side, like The Room Where It Happened, are a lot more traditionally musical songs, you know.
And same with like Burn and Hurricane, which are both quite sort of like, yeah. I think that's definitely
probably
a point,
why I liked the first half so much more. It's like in the first half, I could see why everyone was so obsessed with it, because it was like this. I've never seen anything else like this before. It's really good. It's a lot more interesting than the political side of things.
The second half's so sad as well.
Yeah, it did make me cry. But then everything makes me cry, so, you know.
Yeah. I think I must have cried at some point at it. Oh, Blow Us All Away is also really good. Like a really good song. It's sad, but it's such a good song.
So many of it's good. Oh, there was a lot of good songs.
I think you should listen to the album, because I think you will enjoy that more.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Let's move on. Jesus Christ.
So, welcome back to Andrew's Film Education.
I still think that needs a better name as well, because that's also appalling.
Well,
wait, aren't you calling it?
How about as a better name, Androcalypse Now?
Jesus Christ, that is bad.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay,
sure. So in this segment, we introduce Andrew to classic films that he's never seen and I've not seen for a little while. I think I last saw. Well, when did I see Apocalypse Now last? Probably like a year or two ago. But yeah, so Apocalypse Now we're doing, which is the Francis Ford Coppola Vietnam War epic from 1979. One of my favourite films.
One of your favourite films, is it really?
It's not, it's not a 10 out of 10. It's not like, but it's knocking on the door of for me.
Really? Okay.
Like, I mean, well, let's get on to this one. So very, very, very quickly, for those who haven't seen it, this is about, it's an adaptation of Joseph Conrad's Hearts of Darkness, about this Vietnam soldier, very jaded, seen his fair share of battles, who is sent back into the fray to go up this river into Cambodia to take out Colonel Kurtz, who has gone rogue and, is basically gone insane, and the US wants him assassinated, but very quietly under the books. And as it's Captain Willard, isn't it, who goes up this river, and as he goes, it's sort of, the world around him gets weirder and weirder as, it is sort of visual metaphor for the loss of sanity in the face of warfare. Ooh.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what did you think of Apocalypse Now then?
I thought it was. There's a lot of merit there, and I think there's a lot of very good bits in it. But it's very dry, and I don't know. It was because I don't want to say it's boring, because it's definitely not boring. But towards the end of it, especially like within the last 45 minutes, when he's met the Colonel Kurtz, I was drifting off to sleep, and it was like a struggle to stay awake. And I think it's such a like that end, that like final act is such like a fucking wind down from the rest of the film.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
That it sort of lost me a bit, because up until that moment there is this fear of the unknown, because you're like, oh shit, what is Colonel Kurtz going to be like? He's obviously this monster. You don't know what he's going to be like. The deeper and deeper you get into the jungle, it is scarier, and everyone's going more mad. We've lost so many people on the way.
Yeah,
and then you fucking meet him, and he's just this fat bald bloke, and you're like, oh okay. And then it sort of lost me there.
I do. So certainly when I first watched it, when I must have been about 13, I do agree with you on that point. I think at the time I was like, we've got this like 2/3 of a film about like the Vietnam War and, all that kind of stuff. And then at the end it sort of becomes Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And I remember finding that kind of change quite incongruous at the time. I've warmed to it in recent years, because obviously it is about like the breakdown of sanity, and in turn the breakdown of civilization the further they get in, to the point they've almost gone back in time. So I appreciate it on an academic level, but I do agree the pace drops off. And I think because he goes there and he sort of gets captured, and he sort of just like sits there being captured for a while before, I don't know, I just feel there's a lot of bumming about at the end.
Yeah, there's a lot of, but also it feels like unexplained, like he has this mission, and then you have the voiceover being like, oh, I didn't really want to do it. And it's like, so he just fucking sits there doing nothing for 40 minutes, and then he's like, oh, I will do it. And then he does it, and he fucking kills him, and then he just leaves, and then it ends, and it's like, oh, okay then. There's sort of, I don't know, it feels like it needed more. There was almost no like tension there at all, because it's like, I never felt like there was inner turmoil of him deciding whether or not he should kill this man. It's just like he fucking sits there doing nothing for 40 minutes, and then he's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to kill him now.
As I recall, there's almost like a sense of like he doesn't decide, but more like Colonel Kurtz decides for him almost.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, he's not killing me because he wants me to kill him, or so, like I remember that being like almost his logic by the end of it.
It's like, well, yeah, there is a bit where he's like, everyone wanted me to do it, including him, Colonel Kurtz, like, because he wanted to die standing up like a soldier.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. I don't know, the end was its weakest part, I thought.
I think that is fair. I think also, I don't know what you feel about this, but like, so the opening sequence is fantastic. Like that sort of, this cacophony of sound and sort of vision, and this sort of, probably one of the originators of the sort of the PTSD kind of like trope.
Yeah.
In terms of the way those are like edited and stuff. But then there's also, I feel like when he's having dinner with those the CIA people,
fucking Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
I didn't know Harrison Ford was in it. He just shows up and he's like in it for 5 seconds.
And like again, I understand the point of this scene, because it is like, this, amongst the warfare and all the shit that's going to go down, here's like these very civilized people having a very civilized dinner, and would you like a prawn? And like it's all very to then contrast later. But I still think that first 40 minutes after that opening is a bit on the dry. Like it takes a while to really get into it. Once he's in the fray and he meets Kilgore, then it's fine from then on.
I think that's definitely the best sequence. Is that?
Oh, the Rise of the Valkyries.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like that's infamous, isn't it? Like
it is, but it's infamous for a reason.
Yeah,
because like
it's fantastic. Like that bit was very, very, very good.
And also, again, this is 1979. No compute. They bought all these helicopters. They napalm tree lines. You know, they built these cities and destroyed. And there's this great wide shot from like the helicopter's point of view, and we just see like these explosions go off amongst the bridge amongst this colossal set, and it's it's the sheer scale of that battle. Yeah. But also, like it so perfectly encapsulates in the smaller moments of the scene that the horror of the Vietnam War, in the sense that like the American aggressors were so outclassed them in terms of technology and sort of intent. Yeah. You know, they come in with these helicopters and just like blow the shit out of everything. And you know, this girl managed to throw a grenade into a helicopter, and it takes out one helicopter out of 10 or whatever, and then is immediately just gunned down. They call her a fucking savage, direct quote. And it's like that's it. That was Vietnam. That one little like minute of action perfectly sums up the entire kind of like attitude towards
conflict.
It. Also, there's in the scene just before, there's the bit when we first see Kilgore and he sees like this one of the Viet Cong women who's been like injured, or is it a man?
It's a man,
one of them. Yeah, he's been injured, and he's like, oh, give him some water, and he's like doing this whole thing about like, oh, we've got to give him water, and then he gets distracted and just forgets, and the guy's just like trying to grab this water, and he's just already forgotten in a split second. And like again, a great introduction to his character.
It is amazing. Like, and I feel so much of that film is just allegorical, isn't it? Or probably, everything is.
Yeah.
And it is good, but I can't say that I love it. Or, it's maybe I will warm to it.
I think it does take repeated viewing, certainly. There's also a thing about, because I don't know if you know the history of this film technically, but like it was basically the first film to have surround sound in the way that we know it today.
Okay.
And the idea was they were going to build this custom cinema in America specifically to play this film, and then it would just play there forever. And if you wanted to see Apocalypse Now, you'd have to go to this cinema from wherever and see it there. Yeah. And then, of course, that fell apart because it was in the middle of the 70s, by which point, multiplexes were becoming a thing and the whole landscape changed.
Yeah.
But so this film basically invented surround sound to some extent. And like you can, I've had better experiences watching this film on like the big downstairs TV with the lights off and the surround sound cranked up. And I think, sort of like we were saying with Hamilton, I think without the right sound system, there is a sort of an element of that scale and sort of atmosphere does get lost a bit.
Yeah. So the other thing is that, and I don't know what you think about this, but in terms of character, it was very hard to be emotionally connected to any of them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, yeah.
To the point where when fucking Lawrence Fishburne dies, when the guy with the mustache gets his head fucking chopped off, it's like, oh, okay then.
Yeah, I certainly, compared to Alien, for example, in the same way as like a core group of people who eventually get picked off, I don't think any of them, well, they're not characterized. I don't think they have anywhere near the right extent to like fully know them as characters and really care for them in the same way something like Alien does. Like they are almost just like the soldier fodder.
Yeah, but like they make a big deal. So Lawrence Fishburne's in this film, and he's like 12 years old. He's like fresh out of preschool. He's still got acne. It's like, it was incredibly hard. It took me a while to recognize that it was him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. But he's got the tape from his mum and it's playing in the background when he dies. And because, he gets shot and he's like dying, bleeding out, and the tape is playing in the background. Yeah. And the tape's like, oh yeah, make sure you stay out of trouble and avoid the bullets and be home soon. And you can see he's just fucking dead. And it's like,
yeah,
that should have been a lot more powerful than it was. but it just wasn't as it just wasn't that powerful. Like it didn't. I was like, okay, he's dead, and that's a bit sad, but it should have been devastating, and it just wasn't.
See, I half disagree because I'd say it has the intended effect, but not from a character perspective, but just from this,
It shows you the horrors of war, and it's like,
yeah, it's partially knowing, but this was like that happened. People were getting these these like teenagers getting taped from their mother and then being shot. Like it, so there's a sense of realism to it, and there's also like even when you don't know who the character is as such, that kind of thing is still sad just because of the nature of it. But I didn't feel for his character as a character. I just felt like generically sad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. But also, the other thing is how quickly the other characters just shrug it off. One of the characters cries about it, and then it just cuts to black, and then fades back in, and he's completely fine again, and they've completely forgotten that guy's died. And also, so the main character, like Martin Sheen, just basically never shows any emotion throughout. And it's like, okay, how are we supposed to identify with these people when their best friends die and they don't give a fuck,
It's the problem with having a jaded protagonist, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's sort of like, even if he was showing that brave face to his men and then, you saw him shed a tear inside, but you don't, he just never mentions him again, doesn't give a fuck. And it's sort of like, well, if our main protagonist doesn't care, why should we?
Yeah.
I did feel like that a lot throughout. And I mean, I don't know, because his entire crew just dies and he just doesn't bat an eyelid.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's an element of like it's, they're almost tools to him. They're just people getting him to where he needs to go. Like you can see earlier on he doesn't try to get involved with them. He sort of very much keeps to himself.
Yeah.
And like I suppose it'd be out of character for him to really like so I think the connection isn't, I know this is counterintuitive, but like even though he's a protagonist, we don't care about them because he does. We just care about them except for, despite him almost. Because it's also like so if you think about like, so obviously Willard's been in the wars and he knows all this, he's jaded, he's used to innocent men and young people dying, so it doesn't matter to him. Whereas audience members, we don't know. And also, if you think this was like one of the first, besides the Deer Hunter, this was like the first really big Vietnam War film. So this was still, these kind of emotions, while nowadays are almost cliche, this was shocking certainly at the time. So like as audiences, despite Willard being jaded, we're fresh to this. We're fresh to his horror and trauma, and we're like, Jesus, this is happening. These innocent people being killed. So I guess that's more the angle, which I know is, isn't great screenwriting necessarily, but
I guess it's just a hard sell, isn't it?
Yeah, I do think. Well, I mean, I haven't watched The Godfather for a long time, but I remember one of my problems with it also was I didn't find there was much sort of emotion in like Al Pacino's character in that. So maybe that's a Francis Ford Coppola directing thing. Like maybe.
Yeah, it could be, but it's not. Look, emotionless can work, but I don't know. Just in this case, like, it was very hard to feel attached to any of them.
Yeah,
you can have emotionless characters and still be like, I really like them. You can have jaded characters and be like, oh, I still really like them. Like, think about like Logan in Logan. He's very jaded, isn't he? And he's like, fuck this. I don't want to do this anymore. But you still very much attached to him, and you still very, very much care about him.
Mm.
And I think, even though he's jaded and doesn't want to care, it's like you still feel for him and you still cry with him, and whereas in this, it's like he doesn't care. It's hard to make ourselves care. And even when he then goes, he accepts the mantle of Jungle King or whatever the fuck he was. It's like, okay, what next? Oh, he's just going to leave. Oh, and the film's ended. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's definitely not a strong character film as such. It's definitely more about, like I was saying, like about the allegory and about.
Yeah, it's definitely allegorical. Like,
yeah, I mean, and the original novel was very much, all just a metaphor. I think that this story is more about. I mean, for one thing, it's way more internal than it is external character-wise. So it's not
Yeah.
about relationships; it's about inner turmoil and sort of dissent,
Yeah.
amidst the backdrop. So I think that's a genuine weakness with the story.
I did feel like it was missing a scene off the end. It just felt like it just ended, and I was like expecting some sort of bit about him getting back to civilization. And,
Well, I mean, would he go back to civilization though? I feel
well, yeah,
that's
I
almost the
suppose,
point.
that's but I wanted to see some sort of
Some resolution.
some resolution, yeah, because it felt like it just ends and that's it. There is no reward. Like this whole thing is meeting this man, like achieving this mission, and there's no sort of like resolution there. He kills the dude, and then that's it. There's no consequences. There's no sort of payoff. He just kills him, and then he fucking leaves, and then it's cut to black. Done.
Yeah. Which there's the argument of like his entire mission was to kill Kurtz. He's killed Kurtz, and that's the end of the story. What happens next?
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose. I don't know. I just wanted a bit more from it, I guess.
There may have been some. So we'll talk quickly about the Redux version.
Okay.
I can't remember specifically. There's something at the end on that, but like, so the Redux version has an extra. I think it's 50 minutes worth of scenes added.
Right.
Most of them are minor things. So, like for example, we know there's the Playboy helicopter comes down. There's that whole scene.
Yeah.
And then later on in Redux, they find the helicopters crashed somewhere, and they find the Playboy bunnies like stranded.
Right.
And then one of them has sex with them, and then they move on.
Okay.
So as an example, so there's like lots of little scenes like that which sort of don't really add anything as such, but I guess they filmed them there and there. The main one for me, and the main reason I said to watch theatrical rather than Redux, because basically I think all of the scenes are added, which are then bloated to like a 200-minute running time, just slow it down even further.
Yeah.
Like,
it was
so-
very slow, I felt.
Yeah,
Because you have like highs of these really intense, like amazing war scenes, and then it's like peaks and troughs, but it feels like there's a lot more troughs than there are peaks. You know?
Which is why I'd have hated Redux, because there's like, I can't remember specifically when this is, but I think it's quite near the end. Like I think it's when they're nearly at Kurtz's compound. They come across this like plantation owned by these posh people, who I think of like English as well. And they get off the boat and they go and have tea with them and have a lovely little merry old time in the plantation. And again, one of them has sex as well, I think, for some reason. I don't know why that's a theme of the Redux version. But this scene lasts, I think it must be at least 40 minutes of the extra 50 added. It takes so long. And at the end of the film, when we already like descent, fully into like insanity. And then, I don't know if that's the point, like there's this island of like, sanity within the mess, which in itself is more insane, like in a sort of Alice in Wonderland kind of way. But it slams the pacing to an absolute halt for like 30-40 minutes, and then sort of just continues. It's like, what is that there for? So that's the main reason I told you not to watch Redux, because that's
Fair enough.
yeah. It's not a terrible watch, but I do think theatrical is just so much more superior. It does like, the extra stuff isn't necessary, I think.
Okay. It's good. I think. I don't know. I'll see if it grows on me at all.
Yeah. So would you consider it a classic? Do you think it's like worthy of being a classic?
It is a classic, isn't it? Because it's got so much in it that is parodied over and over again by like everything else. Mainly The Simpsons is all I can think of right now. But it's that helicopter scene is infamous. The bit of him popping his head out the water is, very famous. There's so much of it that is just iconic, and I think it definitely deserves to be a classic. And I think it definitely has its problems that I've raised.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I will grow to like it a bit more. Because it's so dry and it was so slow that it was almost off-putting,
I think you also have to be in the right mood for it as well. Because like when I rewatched it a couple of weeks ago for this, I definitely wasn't in the right mood, and I can definitely see the problems of it being slow and being sort of underwhelming when you're not in that very specific mood. It's similar to Blade Runner in a way. Blade Runner also doesn't work if you're not in the right mood for it. So I think it's
Yeah.
one of those films. But like Blade Runner, I think the sort of the audio visual sort of pizzazz of it, like it's such a great film in terms of the AV spectacle.
Yeah.
And that's what it's there for, and I think that's sort of its big virtue.
Okay. Well, I'm interested to watch Hearts of Darkness as well.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. We could do that on Quest for Truth even.
We can indeed.
I mean, technically I've already seen it, but we'll rewatch it anyway. But
Yeah.
Which so for those who don't know, Hearts of Darkness is the documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now, which was infamously one of the most cursed productions of probably any film. Like, I think it took 4 years to make that film. Like, they started in 76 and finished in 79 or something crazy.
Right.
And like everything that could go wrong in a film set went wrong in Apocalypse Now, and the documentary documents all of that.
The documentary is as famous as the film itself.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like, the documentary is supposed to be one of the best making of documentaries ever made.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll give that a watch and do it on Quest for Truth at some point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next time on Andrew's Film Education,
Yes.
do you want to do Casablanca?
Oh God.
Sorry.
Isn't that like 1,000,000 years long?
No, it's like in 100 minutes.
Oh, what's the 4-hour long one?
Gone with the Wind.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, Casablanca.
We'll do Casablanca, I think. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we'll do Casablanca next time. And if you at home have any reviews of Casablanca or any of suggestions for Andrew's Film Education, you can email us at cinerambles@gmail.com.
Wait, which one's Casablanca?
Here's looking at you, kid.
Okay.
It's set. It's in Casablanca in Africa during
Right.
World War II, and it's like Humphrey Bogart's at a bar, and then some woman he knows comes in, and there's like a romance, but not quite. I'll be honest, it's been a very long time since I saw it, so
A romance, but not quite. Okay, got it.
What? I mean, I think the key point is like it's like the love of his life, but he has to let her go in order to save her from the Nazis or something.
Right.
I honestly can't remember because I think I was 13 when I watched it and I wasn't paying attention properly. So
Okay. So, Nick, I have been, well, I don't know if you saw, but Unsolved Mysteries is back.
yeah, I did notice actually. The moment we spoke about it, there
It
is.
appeared on Netflix. It's obviously not a remake, it's a reboot.
Yeah, a revival.
Revival, yeah, that's the word. It's very different. So I've only watched one episode of the new one, and it's good. It is good.
But
There is a but. There's still a but. So the new one is just one mystery per episode, and there is, I think there's 6 episodes, or maybe 8. And the mysteries in there, or at least the one we watched, was really interesting. And it was very, it was an unsolved mystery, and it was very fascinating. They just lay the facts out for you. They've got interviews with all of the people, involved. It's just like talking heads, and then they put in like recreations. They do this thing, so in the first episode, this guy goes missing, and then like a week later or a few weeks later, they find his body, and it appears as if he's jumped from a hotel into like this other building, and there's like this tiny hole in the roof.
right,
And they've put these fucking graphics in where it shows you like this wide shot, obviously like taken from a helicopter of the hotel, and then it's like circled the hole, and then has a little bit coming off saying hole. It's like, thanks Netflix, I didn't realise that gaping hole was a hole.
for the slower members of the audience.
Yeah. But so I've realised like the inherent problem with Unsolved Mysteries is that they are unsolved and thus very, very unsatisfying.
Yeah, there's no conclusion presumably. It's all just like
Yeah, well, because it's like, how the fuck did this guy die? Who killed him? Why did he have to die? Because he was like perfectly happy. He was very, he was financially stable. He loved his wife, and then just one day he was missing, and then 6 days later he showed up dead, and no one knows why or how he died, basically. And it's like, it just sort of ends, and it's the wife is like, oh, I'm really sad. I really miss him. His brother's like, yeah. Things will never be the same. I'm still looking for answers, and it just sort of ends. It's like, oh, if you have any information, go to unsolvedmysteries.com or whatever. And it's like, well, shit, I really wanted to know how he died.
Well, then surely wasn't the original show like that as well?
Well, yeah, it was, but in the original show, I don't know, but they also had a lot of the... We only tended to watch the revisited ones, so you do have the satisfying conclusion on the end.
Right.
And I'm hoping that in a few years' time, if any of these do get solved, which is obviously the massive positive of Unsolved Mysteries, that they'll do a revisited and we can then go and see that these things have been solved. And also, well, as far as I can tell, there's only one fucking bullshit UFO episode. And I'm really hoping that is the only bullshit episode because...
For old time's sake.
Yeah, because it's just fucking dog shit. Because I just... Why give them the time of day? You know? It's like, oh, there's a spooky UFO that comes to me every night. Okay, we'll set up some cameras. It's, oh, the UFO hasn't showed up tonight. It must be the weather. Okay, we'll come back tomorrow. Yeah, okay, cool.
Even the most advanced civilizations, when they build UFOs, like, what's that cloudy weather? Nah, I can't do it.
Can't show up.
Turbulence.
Sorry.
So, from what I remember of you telling me about the old series, is they'd have the mystery and they'd go and investigate it sort of themselves, the presenters. Is that...
Well, so... It's not really them investigating it. It's more of them like collating all of the evidence and...
Oh, okay.
You know, they didn't then go and look into it themselves. But, you know, they pulled together all of the strings to make it one cohesive sort of case, you know?
Because I was going to say, if the whole point of it was about investigation, we're not having that be a key problem with the new one. But I suppose that could be a way to improve it, to have, like... Because that's what I thought it would be, like a presenter's like, well, this is a mystery and this is what we know so far. I'm going to go and investigate and see what I can find.
Yeah.
Because that's more of a show. That's more of a content than just like basically a dramatized Wikipedia read, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose. Yeah. It does sort of feel like that, but I mean, they do present it in an interesting way, and they like present to you the multiple theories of what they think could have happened. And then they've got, an interview with because the case we watched was so completely baffling and there was no evidence at all, that I think it was two different detectives and then two different investigative journalists all had a look at it and all interviewed loads of different people. And it's but also they never got in contact with each other. And this show sort of brought all those different investigations together and represented it, as a complete sort of case, which is quite cool. But it, I feel like that case is just never going to be solved because, so the police, the lead detective who was in charge of the case officially said that he tried to contact this company who the bloke who died had been working for, and that company did a cease and desist on all of their employees and lawyered up and refused to speak to them.
That's not suspicious at all.
Yeah, exactly. It's could you make yourself look any more guilty? You may just fucking stamp "we did it" on our forehead and move on.
I mean, that's all the evidence you need, really.
Yeah, it's why would you not talk to... But also the entire company was not a single employee was allowed to talk to the police about it. You'd think maybe the top dogs weren't allowed to talk about it, but these random chumps that probably know nothing about it could talk about it.
Couldn't they specifically be okay, you can talk to this one guy who's relatively high up, then brief and be right, you only tell them this, this, and this. Leave out the crime bit.
Yeah, they didn't even release a statement. Yeah, they just...
That would be less suspicious. At least try and be no, I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing here. Yeah. Nothing but good old family fun behind these doors.
Yeah. But it's interesting, and I think it's worth... It's very, very Netflix documentary now. Because if you watch any Netflix documentaries, there's always the same sort of,
style.
Yeah, it's very stylized, and they're always the same. Have you watched any other crime documentaries made by Netflix?
So I watched Amanda Knox over the weekend, which I'm pretty sure is a Netflix original. I mean, but you haven't seen that, have you?
I have not, no.
No. But I mean, that's probably like the main other one I've seen at the moment.
Okay. I recommend the Ted Bundy tapes.
Yeah, that is on my list.
That's really, really good. And that's very interesting. There's also The Confession Killer, again. It's exactly, not exactly this, because obviously it's a different case, but it's the same style, like just through and through.
Yeah.
But all of those types of, I haven't seen Making a Murderer. Well, I've seen a bit of Making a Murderer, but the bit of Making a Murderer I've seen was that exact same style,
Yeah. I think I saw the first 2 episodes at uni and never got around to watching the rest.
It does make me think, like, is it the same person making all of these documentaries, or is it just Netflix being like, you have to cut it and make it to this exact brief,
Well, it's possible since these are all like Netflix original product, like made in house. They might have the same editor, for example, the same producers being like, we want it like that, rather than like a specific guideline.
I mean, Tiger King was sort of similar, but then it's a lot. It's still definitely different.
Was Tiger King? I know it was the original, of course. Was it made in house by Netflix, or was it made by independents and then bought for distribution by Netflix?
I am not sure, because I know that Tiger King's definitely got a specific documentarian attached to it.
Well, that's what I was thinking, yeah.
All of these other ones, his name's attached to it, whereas all of these other ones are just Netflix made. They're not a documentary by, Bob and Tim. They are
they are by Netflix.
By Netflix, yeah. But yeah, it's you should give Unsolved Mysteries a watch. It might be worth watching a new one and then going back and watching an old one and seeing how different they are. Because I reckon the old ones are just cringe city.
Is there any way you can watch the old ones without just buying a flat in Portsmouth?
Apparently they are aired on CBS every single night. So
I might actually have CBS on my TV.
CBS reality every night. Jesus Christ, like literally every single night.
I didn't realise, so until recently I was going through my TV channels trying to work out. I think I was trying to find one of the film channels to record something. And there's I get PBS and NBC and stuff. I'm like, since when did I get those? Why have we got them in England? They're on weird. Channel 300 or something. We seem to have them. I was blown away by that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I mean, I would be interested to compare the two. To see how well, because they're so dated, the old one, and the new one is very modern in the way it's told. It'd
be cool if there was a mystery they covered on the old series, and that's still an unsolved mystery in the new one.
What they come back to, yeah,
and it'd be like, well, we looked at this in the 80s, and we're still back, and this is what we've made since, but it's still unsolved.
Well, so the problem with that is there's what's the point of them retreading that when there's because when did it stop being made? In the mid-90s?
I think it went on until 2010, didn't it? I think that's the date.
Oh, yes, but it didn't have Robert Stack.
No. I think it went on, it went on for a little bit.
Whereas this, as far as I can tell, all of these are made, 2010, you're right, yeah. Okay, maybe not then. Because what I was going to say was them. I was going to say there must be 20 years of new unsolved mysteries for them to unsolve.
Only 10 years.
It's only 10 years. Well, this one from the first episode was in 2006, and it's so weird. She's like, oh yeah, this is his cell phone, and it's like a fucking Nokia brick.
Wow, that is dated.
And it's I haven't seen a phone like that for so long. It's weird that phones used to look like that.
Yeah.
How quickly they became these massive touchscreen pads, I
remember having my mum's old little Nokia thing when I was 10, I think.
Yeah.
Oh man, so long ago.
So long. Anyway, that's enough of that.
Yeah. I think we'll leave it there for this week's episode. You've been listening to Ciné Rambles with Nick.
And Andrew.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/CinéRamblesOfficial.
And follow us on Twitter at Ciné Rambles.
If you want to find more content, you can read the blog over at cinerambles.blogspot.com.
And email us with all your stuff and your things and reviews and all that. and email us. And it's not just Penny that can email, by the way. It's not pennies only.
No, it's for
anyone.
everyone.
It's for everyone. We swear. Nick, Penny wants her money, by the way. She wants another 10 quid. Is that all right?
We'll discuss this later.
Okay, all right. I'll get back to you. Okay, yeah, email us, please, for the love of Christ. Nick's lifeline is almost run out.
But at what address?
Oh, it's cinerambles@gmail.com.
You always start doing your email bit, then get distracted with your joke and don't actually say the address.
I never say the email. It's because you say it about 50 times a fucking...
Hey, I've only said it once this episode.
Well, good job. Well done, Nick. I'm so proud.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
See you next week. Goodbye.
Good day. Say goodbye. I should try and say goodbye normally, like a regular human being. But, oh well, goodbye. Fuck.